Awesome. I think that is us and that is our team live. So thank you to everyone for joining us. I will give a little bit of an intro just because I know it will take a couple of seconds for everyone to push through and to join us on Instagram. My name's Jen, lovely to meet you. I am the director here at Journo Resources. I'm going to be answering as many of your questions as possible over the next half an hour. Because I don't want to be answering them and asking them myself. I'm joined by our director Jack, who's going to be chucking questions at us and Haley here as well. So there are many people to ask us questions. So let's get straight into it. Jack, where should we start?
Yeah, so first of all, the main question that we had that we felt we should clear up for people is what is the fellowship?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing first I want to say is fellowship isn't a job, but it is a training program. And we're really proud of the fellowship. Not about 90% of people who've completed this fellowship in the past have gone on to further paid work in the media. So it is a training program, and that does also come with a commission. So the main parts of that fellowship are a paid commission where you'll be paid at least £180 for your work. And you will get to work with one of our senior editors who will help you develop that story to make something that you're really proud of. That will be a portfolio piece. We'll also team you up with a dedicated mentor for 6 months. So that will be someone who is very much tailored to what it is you want to do in the journalism and media industry. And you'll also get to take part in some training sessions as well. So on the things we actually need right now. So some of the sessions we've got lined up at the moment include looking at the data behind the journalism jobs market. We've got a resilience coach who's going to kind of talk about how you can build that resilience, as well as kind of AI tools or whatever, right? Self-editing, interviewing, all of that kind of stuff. There'll be at least 6 sessions there as well. And you also get membership to Journo Resources as well, which comes with tons of other benefits as well. So I guess the main thing to stress is this isn't a job, but it's a training program that does come with a paid commission and tons of other benefits kind of help support you to get your first job or break into freelancing.
And what is the application process? What do people have to do if they want to become a member?
So I guess the key thing I would like to stress here is that when we've designed this application process, we wanted to make it as simple as possible. Um, so it isn't very long in what you expect it to write, but we do expect you to spend a bit of time thinking about it. So I will talk you through the parts of the form very briefly and what you are expected to do. But what I would also flag is that if you have any problems with any part of the form, you can get in touch with us if for any reason you need to submit in a different way. Perhaps writing isn't your thing and you would rather kind of send us a video. That is absolutely fine. If you need an adjustment, just email hello@journoresources.org.uk. And the key thing I would stress is that you need to do that before the deadline. We are a super small team. I'm the only full-time member of staff. So if you do need some adjustments, please let us know and then we can make that happen. But in terms of what you actually need to do, we've tried really hard to make it a really simple process because we don't want you to have to go through tons and tons of work for something that you may or may not get. So we ask you for your details, very simple stuff there. So just how your name and how we get in contact with you. We'll also be asking if you feel you come from a marginalised background. The scheme is open to everyone, but we do want to make sure that we are representative of the country and the wider journalism industry. So please feel free to share that with us if you feel comfortable, but there's no compulsion to do so. And then we'll be asking you for some examples of your work. So I guess the key thing I would flag there is when you're sharing some examples of your work, this doesn't have to be, a lot of people I think in advance have asked us about experience and how much experience you need to have. So don't stress about what these examples of work need to be. This could be something you've written in a Google Doc and you want to send us that you've kind of written for your own blog. That's absolutely fine. So it could be anything. We just want to see some examples of something you've done, whether that's a professional byline, whether that's student media, whether it's something that you've written, even if you send us an essay that you completed as part of the course, that's absolutely fine, just to get a sense of who you are and what you've done. And we'll just need up to 2 links there. We don't want any more. Because there's only a few of us, we won't have time to read them all. So yeah, send us 2 examples of your work and do make sure they're actual examples as well. Don't send through a portfolio site because then we're kind of digging through and trying to find the best bits of your work. So just send us a couple of examples. And then there are 3 questions, and each of these 3 questions are no more. I think the top limit for one of them is 150 words. So they're, again, very short, very tight. And we ask you, why do you want to be a journalist? So this is about your motivation about getting into journalism. Why do you want to join this fellowship in particular? And then finally, we will ask you what you'd like to write as part of this fellowship. So it's a very short and straight form. But yeah, if you have any questions or if you have any problems with filling that out, I guess the main thing I want to stress here is get in touch with us sooner rather than later because we do want to help. But in order to do that, we need to do that earlier rather than later.
And is there anyone who can't apply? Are there any exclusions?
Um, yes, so we have tried to keep this as kind of open as possible because we know that people break into journalism or pivot into journalism at all stages of life. So there are a very, very small number of exclusions. So the main thing is that you must be over 18 at the time the scheme starts. That's a legal thing for us. You do need to be based in either the UK or Republic of Ireland. We would love it if it was open more broadly, but we to go by the terms of our funding. And a lot of our funding for this comes from UK-based charities. So you must be over 18, you must be based in the UK or Ireland, and you can't also be working in paid journalism at the moment. So if you already have a full-time or a part-time job in journalism, or if you're really established as a freelancer already, and that is actually becoming an income stream for you, then this isn't the right program for you. We do have tons of other places that you can go for advice. So if you are already working in journalism, I'd recommend taking a look at our mentoring kind of one-off scheme where we can kind of give you some 1 or 2 sessions to kind of talk through some of those problems. So yeah, those are the main exclusions that I would be looking at. And the only thing I guess I would flag is that people sometimes kind of ask is, I've had 1 or 2 pieces written for work experience, or I've landed 1 piece, 1 byline, and that's the extent of my freelancing. That's absolutely fine. It's more about like, is this a income stream from journalism that you're having right now? And if the answer is no, then that's absolutely fine to apply. And the only other thing to bear in mind is if you are still studying, we do ask that you only have a maximum of 12 months left on your course. And that's just because this is a scheme to get you into paid work. So if you've got more than a year left, you're not really going to get the best benefit out of this. But we'll be running it next year. So if you've got 2 years left to go, then come back and join us next year.
And robots are also excluded. What's the policy on kind of using Gen AI to fill in all of those answers?
Yeah, so what I would say on this is that we really want to get to know you. We've tried really, really hard, and we know, and I absolutely empathise, that the job market at the moment is super competitive. It's a bit of a bin fire, so completely empathise with that, and that is why we've tried to make it as streamlined as possible. We've got absolutely no problems with people who are using tools to improve what they've written, but we would ask that when you put this together, that we hear from you and not something that a robot has spat out. And in return, we will make sure that at least 3 people read every application. So, we've already set up a spreadsheet. There will be at least 3 people that read from depth every single application. Everyone who wants to receive it will get feedback, even if you're unsuccessful. So in return for that and our investment in time, we do ask that you don't ask the robot to write it for you. And mainly that's also just because we want to hear from you, and we want to know what kind of really spurs you on and what really kind of you find insightful. And yeah, I'm just enjoying the cat. I don't know if you can see this on the live stream, but I'm also being interviewed by the cat.
He's wondering if he's excluded. So we talked about what you're not looking for. What are you looking for when people are applying?
Yeah. So I guess the main thing that we are looking for when we're looking through this application, and the thing that we look at first, is the idea that you want to pitch us, because that's the thing that we're going to be working on with you for several months. You're going to get paired by an editor, you're going to write this, and we really want this for you to be something that you can take and really kind of use to apply for jobs. So when you're kind of prioritizing, I think really prioritize what that idea is, and what that looks like. Now, the main thing that we're looking for here is it has to be something that works for our audience, something that normally trips people up, is that they'll maybe pitch something that doesn't work for an audience of journalists. So at Journo Resources, our audience is journalists. That means we have to write stories that are of interest to journalists and cover the journalism industry. So make sure the piece that you are pitching is either related to the journalism industry in some way or helps an audience of journalists. So that's the main thing there. And also, I think when you come up with an idea, I'd almost just do like a bit of a sense test. So you'll probably know people around you who are maybe in the same situation as you, who are maybe also applying for journalism jobs. Maybe like, do you find this interesting? Like, is this something that you would want to? What we're really looking for is those kind of shareable essays that you might read, that you might find kind of relatable. So long form ideas that you find interesting, that you find relatable, that are interesting to journalists. And also just check that this isn't something that we've done before. So we've put a link out, I think on the main page, where we have linked to fellowship stories in the past. You can also check through our advice pages. So just check that we haven't done it before and make sure that you're really honing in on ideas. So I've really gone in on this, but the idea really is the most important part to us. So making sure it's something that our audience is interested in, something that's relevant to journalists, something that you feel if you read, you'd relate to or share with other journalists, making sure it's not been covered before. And so start with that. And then those other two questions, we're really actually wanting to get a sense of you and feel that passion and what makes you unique. So, I think the other thing to say here actually is I think what I really enjoyed the most out of the applications that I read last year is the people that were really honest about that. In perhaps a slight difference to maybe some of the applications that you might do for jobs where maybe you want to just continually big yourself up and how great you are. Like, feel free to be completely honest in this application. We're looking for people who will want to learn, want to get the most out of it. So please talk about what you hope you can get out of it, and also don't feel that you can't talk about any struggles you've had, because that's what this theme is. This theme is here for.
And just a little bit of clarity, you touched on this a little bit earlier, but we've had a question in the chat around if you were doing kind of freelance journalism on an ad hoc basis, but work kind of normally outside of journalism, does that make you eligible? Does that not make you eligible to apply?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a hard line to kind of draw in the sand very like distantly, when we're talking about freelance journalism, because that can be a little bit messy. I guess the line that we would draw is if this is a significant income stream, if like that's part of the what way that you're paying your bills each month, then probably not. But like, if this is something that you feel that you haven't managed to break into properly yet, you've just got a couple of pieces here and there, then yes, that's absolutely fine. If you're saying that your primary way of making money is working outside journalism, yes, absolutely. And if you've got any worries or any questions, I do appreciate we had a couple in advance where people had very unique situations. Maybe they'd, worked somewhere else, taken a career break. If you've taken an extended career break, that's also fine. But if you do want to check, the email address to email us on is hello@journalism.uk, and we will try and get back to you. Cool.
And what are some of the common mistakes people make? And equally, we've had a question in the chat about what can help people stand out.
Yes. Okay. Common mistake. So I think I've mentioned this already, but one of the most common mistakes that we see are people who are pitching things which aren't relevant for our audience, and that's really hard sometimes because they're really great ideas and they pitch something super interesting or super important, but ultimately it's not. It's not for an audience of journalists. So making sure that you have actually put together an idea that is about journalism, journalists, relevant to the audience of journalists. That's definitely a mistake we see quite often. Very often we see people putting in their portfolio website rather than those two specific links. Again, please do send us two specific links. We don't necessarily have the time to. It sounds really harsh, but I time tracked it 1 year. We went through all of the applications and it took me, I think, 3 days just to read them all, within 24 hours times three. So we genuinely don't have time to go on them. And it also just shows that you've thought about what pieces are the best for us to read. So making sure you picked that. Other common mistakes. Oh, good question. What I've already mentioned what we are, I guess, looking for. We are looking for you to be honest. We're looking for also, I think, for you to just be able to tell us what you will get out of the scheme. And I think being really personal about that and thinking about the scheme as a whole. So there are, I think I mentioned lots of different parts of the scheme. So you get to write a piece, you get to work with an editor on that, you get a bespoke mentor. There are various aspects of training that you get. And so really tell us what pieces of that, which will be unique to you think will be the most benefit. Because what we're looking at here is not necessarily for the most accomplished person. We're actually looking for the people who we think we can help to get on this out of the scheme. So take a real look at what is offered and actually tell us which small parts of that you think you would get the most out of. You don't have a lot to say, so don't necessarily feel that you have to address all of them, but do take the time to think about which bits really would help you. The other thing I would also say is just don't rush. We definitely see a lot of people who rush, and quite often, like these are quite short word counts, and sometimes I will see people not use the whole word count. We're generally asking you for 100 to 150 words in all of these questions, so use that as a benchmark for the level of detail that is expected. So do use all of that. Use all of that space to kind of tell us everything that you can. Um, and also, yeah, I've mentioned this already, but do just interrogate that idea. Make sure that if you have come up with an idea that you think is really interesting, do a little bit of research, not just with us, but with other places. Because sometimes I see ideas which are perhaps really interesting, but kind of have that conversation has been talked about a lot already. It's something in journalism that maybe we've had conversations about for the last 5 years. So what makes that, ask yourself what makes it different, what makes it stand out.
And what kind of results have people who've done the fellowship previously had? Like what successes have they had, I guess?
Yeah, so we're really, really proud of all our fellows and what they have gone on to achieve. So a number of our fellows have gone on to again, this really depends on what you particularly want to do in terms of where you want to go with your career and what you want to get out of it. What I can tell you is, a number of our fellows have since gone on to get places on some highly competitive grad schemes. So we've managed to get people placed on the BBC journalism training scheme. We've got someone, Steffi's on the Financial Times journalism training scheme. We've had people go directly into jobs. So we've had people go into Pink News, Reader's Digest, News Quest. We've had people who've launched kind of successful freelance careers. So Angela, who was on the fellowship a couple of years ago, um, is now working part time for Positive News. So a whole kind of range of stuff. And actually, maybe I should mention this because we've got the cat with us on the call. But we've equally had people who have gone through that scheme and actually it's helped them realise that they thought journalism was their thing and it wasn't. And now that we've got someone who's working as a vet, and I'm actually really proud that that was able to give them that clarity. So we've got the whole range of Guardian, BBC, FT, all of those big names, but also some more specialist things. So it really depends on what you and what you're looking for. But yeah, about 90% on our last count have gone on to further paid work, whether that is working straight in a job at a specialist or whether that's a scheme or, we've had people who've gone on and done the Guardian Spot Trust Versus, for example. So yeah, those are just a couple of things. But all of our fellows' names, you can very easily find them. So if you just search Meet the Fellows and a year, we've been doing this for the last 5 years, you can find those names and check out where they are.
And that also can help you see how many places there were in previous years. How many fellows are we looking for this year?
Yes, so this is a slightly flexible number, mainly because we are still, we find it really hard when we go through. Typically, we'll get between 200 and 400 applications every year. And we will see a lot of really great ideas. And so until the very last minute, we continue to search and find funding. So we are always looking if we see really good ideas to try and convince more people to give us money so we can take more people. But roughly this year, we're hoping to take on about 10 to 15. It's going to be our 10th year of Journo Resources, I think, which is a little bit bonkers. So we are looking for it to be our biggest year yet. So we're looking at about 10 to 15, I think, what we're hoping for cohort this year. And the other thing I guess I would add with that is the real benefit that you get as being part of this is you'll be part of the cohort of people. So we'll also be setting those fellows up with ways to kind of benefit from each other as well.
And you obviously touched upon that the main subject of the pitch that we're looking for people to give us is around journalism or media or something that is interesting to journalists in the media in that way. We've had a question in the chat around, is it relevant for someone who wants to go into kind of lifestyle journalism? I wonder if you want to maybe point out some of the variety of pieces that we've had that touch upon some of those specialisms within journalism, even though they've still been focused on journalism itself as a subject.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say whatever area of journalism that you want to get into, this is absolutely for you. Whether you want to be in lifestyle journalism, whether you want to be in investigatory journalism, like news journalism, we will absolutely help you do that. We've had people who for example, of wanting to get into travel journalism, all kinds of things. So, um, what would I say? I think to take lifestyle as a particular example, I think we'd also just encourage you to be a little bit creative. So, I think last year we had a really nice piece, I think, which you worked with someone on, Jack, where the pitch was a photo essay, and it was around journalists' death. And we ended up with this gorgeous piece, which was just loads of pictures of journalist deaths. It was really interesting. One of them literally looked like a prison room because there was nothing in it. But like it was actually a different, more lifestyle format where they were able to approach something that an audience of journalists want from a lifestyle. It was like, what can we learn from what our desks look like? And that was a beautiful magazine story. Equally, we did, again, I think you worked on this one, or maybe Kaylee worked on this one, I can't remember. We equally had a piece last year around kind of accent and accent bias, and that was done with some great audio clips as well. So, if you are interested in a particular type of journalism, while the physical output will go in a magazine, there are different ways that you can think about that as how you might present it. It doesn't have to be like an investigative feature. And I guess the other thing that I would say that I would encourage you to think about is this is also a really good chance to get to network and speak to people in that profession. So we've had people, for example, who've wanted to go into travel journalism, who've pitched and written some really interesting pieces about I think there's Kate Hammer who wrote a really interesting piece about sustainability in travel journalism a couple of years ago. And that was a great opportunity for them to go and chat to some travel journalists in the field. So if you're interested in a specific type of journalism, what I would say is we are very open to different formats. It doesn't have to be hard news. It doesn't have to be like an investigative feature. And also think about how you could pitch a piece that would maybe help you by the interviewees that you chat to.
And as we kind of get close to half past, how do people actually apply? If they're looking for the details, they're very interested, where do they go if they need to actually, if they want to find out more and they want to apply?
Yeah, absolutely. And I am happy to stay for like a few extra minutes because I know we did start late. So I will just say that. But yes, if you do want to apply, it is on the front page of our website at the moment. And you just have to search Journo Resources Fellowship. Um, there's a whole long page. I would definitely recommend you read the page, just search Journo Resources Fellowship 2025. Make sure you read it. There is absolutely tons of tips on there. So a lot of people have been asking specific questions about what you're looking for, what should I avoid. We have written everything that we're looking for or not looking for. And if you actually take the time to go and read that, that will really guide your application. So head to there. You have until the 21st of September to go in. So you've still got a while. You've still got like, what's that? 11 days. So enough time to look through that, read it, and take a bit of time.
And we've got a couple of questions broadly around the subject of the pitch itself. Like one person before the call asked around, do I need to have kind of interviews confirmed before the pitch? Someone else in the chat has asked about like, how specific should I be in the pitch? Should I be mentioning sources or who I want to interview? Like maybe talk a little bit more around how to pitch that piece like well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I would say is it's always great for us to know that you have thought something through. So if you have, obviously, we are very aware that we're not giving you a lot of words in order to do this. But if you can give us a sense of the types of people that you would like to speak to, that would be great. So in that pitch, what we're broadly looking for is here is the story. So a sentence that really tells us what it is that you're looking to kind of dig into, and give us a sense of who you might want to approach, or who you might want to kind of think about, or kind of what that kind of will go through to give us a sense of what that finished piece might look like. We're definitely not expecting you to have got those. We're not expecting you to have done those interviews already, and we're not expecting you to have approached people already. And I'd actively go so far as to say don't do that, because the whole point of working with one of our editors is we're going to have, you'll have that first meeting, we'll get to bounce some ideas around, and it might be that that idea shifts or changes slightly. So yes, if you've got some ideas about the kind of people that you would like to speak to, who those people might be, absolutely tell us. But we're not expecting you to have got that signed up or signed off, because we want to work with you on that so that we can help you with connections or give you new ideas or angles to help make that the best we can.
And uh, the types of work that you might be including in the pitch itself. Someone's asked if that can kind of be, does it just have to be written work? Can it also be audio work? Can it also be video work? Maybe we can talk to some of the examples
Yeah,
of
whatever you
some of the
like.
other pieces
Yeah,
we've had. Yeah.
yeah, of course. So you can send us written work. That can be stuff that's on a website that's published. Um, it can equally be if you had something in the magazine, people have taken photos of it and uploaded it to Google Drive. You can do that. What I would say, actually, this is a real thing to make sure that you have done. If you are sending us a Google Drive link, please make sure that you've set the access right, because we will not have time to go through and request access. To that, we have a very tight timetable of like 2 weeks to go through all these. So make sure if you're sending us a link that you set the access right. So yeah, you can send us a link to something on the web. You can send us something on Google Drive. You can send us a podcast or an audio clip if that's posted somewhere. You can send us a video. Absolutely doesn't have to be a video thing, but we just want to see something that you feel best shows off your skills as a journalist. And as I say, if you've not got anything published anywhere, that's absolutely fine. That can just be something you've written in Google Docs yourself, or a podcast you've done and haven't published anywhere. Absolutely fine. What I would say though is if it is a particularly long video or a particularly long kind of piece of audio that you're sending us in that folder where you're sending it to us, maybe put a little note just to say the bit I'd really like you to listen to is that 10 minutes in, because we're not going to be able to listen to a whole hour long kind of documentary. So make sure they're kind of appropriate that someone can look through.
And someone in the chat's asked about whether you should be pitching a piece about yourself, or whether you can pitch a piece that's actually a first person kind of experience piece, or whether it has to be something a little bit more third person.
Oh, that's a great question. So I think in terms of lived experience, we would absolutely welcome that. So you are absolutely welcome to pitch something that relates to your kind of lived experience. We would ask that if you did, that yeah, that is something that you do have experience of. But we would also say don't feel kind of constrained by that. We're also very conscious of, the expectation sometimes for people from marginalized communities to get their first break by using their own trauma or their own experiences. So don't feel you have to do that. But there is absolutely nothing to stop you. And we've published some really great pieces that have kind of started with lived experience. So yes, absolutely. But the only thing I would also add to that is that we are always looking to kind of develop this into kind of like a feature in some sort. So it may be something that is introduced by your lived experience, but we will still then work with you to go on and do some additional interviews to kind of broaden that out. So it can be a personal essay, but it will be one where we'll then expect you to go and speak to people with kind of similar or different experiences to kind of round that off into a kind of wider piece, if that makes sense.
And finally, what is the one thing that you think makes a successful applicant, and why?
Oh, that's a really great question. Um, One thing. What's your one thing?
I think when we've been looking through a number of these, just that golden rule of you're actually pitching a story that needs to be relevant for our audience and is about journalism. I think the amount of really awesome pitches for really awesome features that we've had are there, but ultimately the output of the work that you do within the fellowship is a piece of paid journalism that lives on the Journo Resources website, and so it needs to be relevant for that audience. I think that's the one thing that makes a successful applicant in anything else, someone who's actually read the brief from the start.
Yeah, and I think maybe related to that is I think something that I would say is a successful applicant has done their research and spent time thinking. And I think that's the most important thing. So you have, and also, by the way, anyone who's coming here and watching this is already well along the way of
Mm.
kind of doing that, because you've done your research, you've asked some questions, but you've spent time thinking and refining that. And genuinely, in any kind of job application process we've ever kind of run before, the people who maybe rush and just put stuff in, that typically doesn't work out so well. So I'd say do your research. You come to this, read the page. We'll send you the link to the fellowship page. Read all of the tips on that. Just spend a bit of time ruminating on what that pitch, what that idea is, what it is that you feel that you would most get out of that, so that you've done your research, spent that time before you put it in. And we're not, as long as it's in by the deadline, it doesn't matter to me what time it comes in. I'd rather that you spend the time to get it right, to refine it, and that you've done your research.
Well,
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I think that's a pretty tight half an hour. We tried to get through as many as we possibly could. But if you have any burning questions, that we'll send out the email address hello@journoresources .org.uk. We look forward to seeing your applications. We really can't wait to read them. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming and have a lovely rest of your evening. And thank you, Jack.